Top of the morning to you. I hope you're all fine and dandy and staying ahead of the game. Remember, it is a game, and each one of us must play our part. Thank you and welcome, and thank you for joining me again. Today I'm going to look at the journey through the spine and how that relates to the chakra or the chi energy, which we read of in the yoga and the Vedic literature. And I'm going to show how the spine of Albion and these 33 sacred points and these 7 chakras all connect one to the other through the zodiac wheel. This video will be quite a long video. To begin with, I have to lay some sort of introduction to the 3 portions of the heavens. Of course, I'm not going to confuse people by jumping straight into how the ancestors seen the 3 portions of the heavens. The upper heaven was seen as the domain of Zeus. Poseidon was the ecliptic portion of the heaven, and the south celestial pole, so the north celestial pole in that upper region, was seen as the domain of Zeus, according to the Greeks. Poseidon was what we would call the ecliptic portion, the sidereal portion of the sky, and the underworld, or the lower realm, was connected to the Greek idea of Hades. But we find this trinity of gods in all the religions and cultures, and as we look at the spine of Albion further on in this study, we'll see how that all ties together and how that was all seen to operate by our ancestors. Because one of the things that I get a lot of people saying to me is, yeah, I understand that the spine of Albion represents the 33 vertebrae on the physical body, but how does that correlate? How do we apply that in a practical manner to the movement of the heavens above? And this is what I hope to show in this study. It will be a lengthy study because there is so much to cover, so I apologise, and I would ask that if you are not from the United Kingdom, if you're not from the British Isles or from Europe and you live elsewhere, maybe you're in America, Canada, Alaska, Australia, New Zealand, Dubai, you could be anywhere, but this is very important also to you because your ancestors originally most likely came from Europe, or you have ancestors who came from Europe. So when I talk about our ancestors in these studies and on my Facebook posts, I'm not being nationalistic. I am not talking about Scottish ancestors in general or specifically. I'm not talking about Irish ancestors. I'm not talking about Welsh ancestors. I'm talking about all the peoples of this earth who have been scattered to the ends of the earth are all descendants of our ancestors here in Europe who left these ancient signs and wisdom here for us to learn. And yeah, it's going to be quite a long video, but please bear with me, and you can always go back and look over it, pause it, and come back to it another time. So in this recording I will be taking a look at the traditional chakra or chi energy points and the zodiac houses which the sun appears to pass through on its journey northward throughout the year. So the sun appears on the horizon and it journeys northwards to the beginning of the spring, and then it starts to come back down in again, but it travels northward. I'll leave this video here running and on repeat while I give this sort of lengthy introduction. I do apologise, but I have to lay some groundwork first for people to follow it. I'll leave the video running in the background as I talk, and that will allow you to familiarise yourself with the images and the houses and how that is overlaid over a map of the British Isles. Our ancestors marked these chakra points by various alignments, mounds, barrows and standing stones throughout the British Isles. Before we begin this study, we must consider that there are over 35,000 designated historical sites throughout the British Isles and Ireland. And many of these standing stones, menhirs, dolmans, tombs, circles, run straight down the heartlands of these ancient isles. These alignments of ancient stone structures are world renowned, and tourists come from all over the world to marvel at them. Stonehenge, Glastonbury and Avebury being the more common tourist destinations. But there is a more sacred path which our ancestors travelled. This sacred journey or ancient path has 33 sacred points or nodes, which of course connects to the 33 vertebrae of our physical anatomy. And this path, or this sacred pilgrimage over the lofty peaks of mainland Britain and Ireland, eventually became known as the Spine of Albion, or in some cases the B'ritISH line, which of course passes through mainland Britain, but also parts of Ireland are connected through its astral stone masonry and stone structures. In the image which is on the screen here in this video, we're looking at an individual spine, and specifically where the chi energy or the chai energy flows through the various chakra points within the body. This is not a front-on view. We're actually looking at the back of the being, and this is exactly how it is overlaid over the British Isles. This sacred pilgrimage to the heavenly Eden, the North Celestial Pole, was achieved by traversing the narrow way. In Hebraic thought, the term is hadarech, simply the way, which is mentioned many times in the New Testament. That sacred journey through the lands of the Gaels came to be known through time as the ley line and the 33 sacred nodes we now call the Spine of Albion, or the B'ritISH line. As we move on, we'll be examining each of the points upon the spine and within the skull, showing where the sun appears to pass through the various zodiacal houses, precisely as our ancestors witnessed and recorded it on stone over the lands of the British Isles some 5,000 years ago. These standing stones, which modern academia and scholars claim are carved with unexplained cut marks, have been strategically placed as markers throughout the British Isles, along the length and breadth of the Spine of Albion, and further afield, to represent the spiritual and anatomical journey our ancestors took through the zodiacal houses. The stones and their cut marks have been erected within certain geographical locations where our ancestors were able to read the stone, know which asterisms they represented, and thus they were able to visit these sites in days gone by to repair their physical body, their DNA and their minds as the zodiacal houses and the energies of those houses moved over that exact geographical location. As these energies moved over, as these zodiacal houses moved over, their electromagnetic currents and frequencies not only touched or resonated on the standing stones themselves, but also they touched the very core of the living earthly vessels, the beings which visited these sites too. If we study the standing stones themselves, we can quite easily follow the stories in the heavens, and the traditionally unexplained cut marks would have been clearly recognisable and known, being read and understood by all who made this sacred journey to the British Isles, from all over the world. I say the cut marks on the stones would have been easily recognisable, because the same markings or very similar styles of markings can be discovered in various forms on stones and in cave petroglyphs worldwide. It was a common knowledge of the heavens and the celestial tree of life which every pilgrim experienced and carried back to their own native lands. For most, this ancient pilgrimage to the Tree of Life, to the British Isles, to the spine of Albion, would have been most likely a once-in-a-lifetime journey, much like the Muslims' Hajj to Mecca and Saudi Arabia. However, as most will know from the research which I have undertaken, even the Islamic faith and their practice of circling the Kaaba is an ancient representation of Ursa Major, Ursa Minor and the 7 luminaries which circumvent the North Celestial Pole, Polaris. When we study the heavens and understand the folklore and the traditions which came from these celestial observations, we discover that all the religions are really just a rehashed, repackaged, revamped version of astro-theological interpretations which were believed and recorded previously by many civilizations. So the Quran, the Bible, even the popular Eastern Vedas are no different. They all tell the tales of the luminaries, of astral characters which do their celestial waltz year in, year out around the North Celestial Pole. For example, we have so many similarities in the stories of Indra, Vishnu, Brahma, Saraswati, Abraham, Sarah, Krishna, Christ, Osiris, Moses, Horus, Buddha, and many more, because they can all be found as representative beings within the asterisms and constellations in the heavens, all emanating from the lotus leaf, or the point of creation, the Hebraic Ibn Hashatiyah, the foundation stone, Polaris, at the North Celestial Pole. We need to remember, people, folks, that we are told in the Bible that God's city is a great mountain, the city of the north. There are many scriptures which point us to God's throne being projected from the north, from the northern celestial realm. See Leviticus 1:11, Psalm 75:6, Job 26:7, Psalm 48:1-2. These are just a few references that are pointing us to the great city, not in the east, but in the north. When it comes to the British Isles, our ancestors and those who came before them knew the stories in the heavens, as did the entire world prior to the invention of all the religions. In ancient times, the heavens were everything. Our ships navigated the 7 seas by the North Star, Thuban. Then it was Polaris. This portion of the sky has always been the wheel of heaven, the table of heaven, the round wheel, the point of all time in creation, and we still recognize it as such in these times, because all time is calculated by Greenwich Mean Time, fixed to the stars, which circle the very same North Celestial Pole. The great thing about Europe and the British Isles is we have the physical evidence written on stone for everyone to examine and discover these truths for themselves. Our ancestors recorded their local versions of these characters. The man struggling with the Hasatan, that great serpent that goes out to deceive the entire earth. And that's why we have the legends of the dragon slaying Arthur and his knights of the Round Table. Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Polaris, Draco, Hydra. These are all asterisms of the North Celestial Pole. And that's also why we have the various tales of St. George, St. Andrew, St. Patrick, and many other saints who battled beasts, snakes, and great dragons. Because it is the serpent energies in man which encompasses everything which we must rule over from the North Celestial Pole, Heaven's throne. It literally is as above, so below. and so too within for each one of us. We can choose to be led astray by false doctrine or practice, or we can attune our minds to the workings of the upper celestial realm. The North Celestial Pole was always seen as the upper celestial mind, and this is why Jesus said, when you see the man with the water pitcher, go to the upper room, the inner temple of the mind, the pineal. And our ancestors understood this mind, body and spirit to be a projection, an overlay over the British Isles, creating the tree of life from the north, projecting south, southeast to the ends of the earth. To them, to our ancestors, Eden, paradise, the Holy Land, it wasn't some far-off place of pilgrimage in the Middle East, which doesn't even see the full celestial show of the heavens from that position. It was always Albion and the lands of Albion and the lands of the North Star. And it was always the lands of Europe and Britain where the celestial principles could be observed in full, measured precisely, witnessed personally, and applied practically to their very physical and spiritual well-being. The realm is full of spiritual fervour, but lacking any true long-term practical application when it comes to aligning the mind and the body with the celestial realm. This is the reality of the sacred pilgrimage we've lost, thanks to the religions and the false spirituality that has replaced this ancient wisdom. What our ancestors marked for us on standing stones and within these sacred sites is the nature and substance of true spirituality, which sadly the majority have lost or have no clue about. Ask anyone who claims to be spiritual or spiritually minded if they know when a drum falls on the astral calendar, and they'll look at you as if you've got 3 heads. That doesn't matter to them. They've got a gong, a weekly drum session, or a deep breathing exercises that opens their pineal gland at will. Really? That's not how your ancestors viewed your spirituality. It couldn't be contemplated or achieved in any way without first considering the very heavens and those energies that moved above and how they interacted with the physical body, and particularly the 33 vertebrae of the spine. So let us take a look at this journey through the spine. How did our ancestors actually bring healing to their physical bodies and minds by visiting these sacred sites? If we're going to examine the things which pertain to the heavens, we need to look at the structure of the chakras from the top to the bottom, and where they all connect within the upper celestial realm we call the stars and the planets. Identifying the Saharasa or the crown chakra is simple because it always sits at the top of the head. The crown, which of course in our case would be the North Celestial Pole. If the crown chakra is represented by the North Celestial Pole, then it only follows suit that the Muladhara chakra, which is the lowest chakra, would represent the South Celestial Pole. And all the other chakras which are in between are stations or crossover points in between. This is how the standing stones are placed throughout the British Isles. This is how the standing stones and sacred sites are placed throughout the British Isles, as we'll see in this study. Let's go on to the chakras. There are traditionally 7 main chakras, and they can all be discovered as designated holy sites throughout the British Isles. I'll go into more detail as we identify the zodiacal movement in this study, and I'll show how our ancestors recorded these points upon the land of ancient Albion. The 7 chakras are the root chakra, Muladhara, which is found at the base of the spine. And connected with this is survival, security, stability, grounding, and our basic needs, and that's the root chakra. The second chakra is the sacral chakra, the svadhisthana, the lower abdomen, below the navel. This deals with creativity, sexuality, pleasure, emotional balance, and relationships. The third is the solar plexus, the manipura, upper abdomen, the stomach area. This deals with personal power, confidence, willpower, and our self-esteem. The fourth is the heart chakra, the anahata, the centre of the chest. The centre of the chest. Love, compassion, forgiveness, relationship, and emotional healing is all connected with the heart chakra. The throat chakra is the fifth chakra, the vishuddha, the throat. Communication, truth, self-expression, and integrity. The sixth chakra is the third eye, known as the ajna. It sits between, as everyone knows, the forehead. It deals with intuition, wisdom, imagination, insight, and our spiritual awareness. And last but not least, at the top, at the North Celestial Pole, at the crown, we have the crown chakra, the Sahasrara, which is at the top of the head, which relates to higher consciousness, connection to the divine, enlightenment within the cosmos. And remember, the word cosmos simply means divine law. In the image playing since the beginning of this recording, we see the 7 chakras over the entire physical body. As I said at the beginning, we're viewing the chakra points from the back of the being. This is not a front-on view, it's the back, because this is exactly how the positive and negative charges of the chakras are positioned over the British Isles on the spine of Albion. If we're going to look at this in regards to left and right sides, or negative and positive, then we're going to start on the left hand side of the image, because that is where the energies always start. So what we are going to witness here is it going from negative Capricorn, down here you see negative Capricorn, over to positive Aquarius. Then the energy coils 3 times from the base of the spine up into negative Pisces, and then up into Aries, positive, then negative Taurus, spiraling around to positive Gemini, then through to negative Cancer, around into positive Leo, then negative Virgo, over to positive Libra, then the energy entwines around negative Scorpio, then the positive energy of Sagittarius, until we're back around the full cycle and back at negative Capricorn again. Does everybody see how that works? This is exactly how the zodiacal houses and the planetary movements have been mapped over the British Isles, over the spine of Albion. And I'll show this by the standing stones and the markings on the stones as we go along in this study. On the left of the image on your screen, excuse me, on the left of the image on your screen, you'll see a poorly pieced together map of the British Isles, this blue image here. Sorry, these maps and these images were pages apart, and I've had to crop them and piece them together for illustration purposes for this video. The images are geodetic maps taken from the book Stars, Stones and Scholars by Anders Collins. If you haven't got this book, I suggest you buy it. You will need it. And it has greatly assisted me in my own personal research. Without it, and without the works of authors such as William Cones Beaumont, Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett, Ross Broadstack, Elia Waddell, and many, many more, I wouldn't be able to piece all this together as I have. And I'm still learning. So all credit and thanks to them for their solid research and years of sacrifices made. The image on your screen, and I mean that literally because we have lost Alan Wilson, Baron Blackett, Ross Broadstock, many more to very strange circumstances. Anyway, back to the image on our screen. The image on your screen is a map of how these energies ascend and descend up and down the physical spine. And I hope everyone is able to see how these energies spiral around the spine in a positive and negative sequence, always returning to Capricorn at the South Celestial Pole, at the base of the spine. But how did our ancestors manage to know where to be at the right time to benefit from these celestial energies? The energies of the zodiacal houses, which move over the physical lands of the British Isles, indeed over the entire earth. It's simple, they just observed the heavens. Doesn't it say that in Genesis 1:14? When we consider that there are over 35,000 sacred sites, stones, monuments, barrows and the likes within these isles, and some of these stones at these sites are 20 to 70 tons of solid rock. When we take that into account, their existence and sheer number, there must have been a very good reason for erecting so many, right? We don't find the same number anywhere else in the world, and we certainly have far fewer sacred stone settings in the supposed Holy Lands in the Near or the Middle East. We seem to have forgotten the simple things like this, and are often so caught up in the modern world and all its entanglements, forgetting that our ancestors, whoever you are and wherever you are on this earth, always looked up to the heavens, and they laid boundary stones and markers for us so that we can get the answers to the questions that they had in everyday life. I decided to leave this recording at 27-28 minutes. People only have so much time in the day, and as I said at the beginning, it would be a long introduction, setting the groundwork of what the spine of Albion is and how the celestial bodies interact with the anatomy of every living being. And it is a challenge and cannot be attempted in a 25-35 minute video. So I've decided to stop this introduction here, and we'll break it down into various parts. The next part of this recording will actually look at the south of England, looking at Capricorn all the way up to Cancer. And we'll look at the geographical locations, the famous stones and rings and circles which mark these zodiacal houses, and hopefully as I go on and move up through the British Isles, we'll be able to show the three levels of heaven as it was seen from the South Celestial Pole, the lower parts of what we call England, to the very northern part of the Faroe Isles and the area to the north of Scotland. So I hope you enjoyed this introduction, and please leave any comments, any questions, any suggestions that, things that I may be overlooking or not presenting clearly. Leave a comment, like and share. Thank you very much for your time. Awen.